Welcome to Gracious George podcast. My new podcast features the topics of spirituality, divine love, blessings, and how divine providence lead us to where we need to be in life. As a Mauritian, being raised on a small island in the Indian Ocean east of Africa called Mauritius, I grew up in cultural diversity. I have African, European, and Indian descent, and I speak Mauritian Creole, French, English, Bhojpuri, and Hindi fluently. Initially, on the path to priesthood, my life took a turn. As I followed my heart, I learned the love that was meant for me by walking with Jesus. My experience toward divine love has been an incredible journey. And I've written a book about my life, how my life evolved when I turned to a greater love in life. It is called A Promising Priest, the Jesuit who changed paths. And it will be available very soon. You can follow along by finding me on my Facebook page at George's forthcoming book. In this podcast, I'm sharing my experience with you, and I welcome your conversation, your interaction on this subject. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome my friend Zafira Scott as my guest on this podcast. Zafira, welcome.
Thank you, George. I'm excited to be here.
Very good. I'm happy that you have accepted to be our guest. Can you tell us a little about yourself, how we met, and what was your first impression on me?
Yeah, I am Canadian born and raised to South Asian immigrants by way of East Africa, and I was raised in Alberta. You and I met, gosh, I feel like it was always like what, 13, 14 years ago when we were pursuing our HR designations and credentials in Vancouver through the HR Association. And I remember thinking that you reminded me so much of my favorite uncle, who is also very tall and very soft spoken. Also from Africa, right? So from that
Yeah.
kind of same area, so the same manner, and just of your very kind nature. And then I also remember thinking that just from your name, I knew you had a French background because George with an S is so French, and my middle school was named after Governor General George Vanier, and the S made me always think back to kind of some fond childhood memories every time we spoke. So yeah, that's what I remember.
Can you share a little about your professional journey?
Sure. So, when my parents came to Canada, they were newlyweds, and they struggled a lot to find the right opportunities to raise their family. They didn't come in as refugees, but they came in as newlywed immigrants, which during a time of a lot of refugees being accepted into Canada was, I think, confusing to Canadians who had not yet experienced so much visible diversity from the African continent. Um, so my parents very deeply believed in civil society, and my mom got me enrolled in French immersion once I was born, and really emphasized volunteering and giving back to the community. I became a young volunteer at the food bank and at women's shelters and with refugee children. I feel like I must have been 6 or 7 years old when all of this started. So giving back to the community was very important from a very young age, and it continues, today. At some point, I grew up and I went off to school in Ontario and moved away from home, which was quite the adventure. I thought, I believed I was a very mature 17-year-old going across the country to live on my own, and quickly learned that nothing I knew, nothing at all, was what I expected. And fending for yourself and telling your parents, no, it's okay, you don't have to give me money for school, I will do it on my own, was very very humbling. Um, Finished my degree at the University of Ottawa bilingually in English and French, and got the opportunity to move to South Korea to teach English and do some recruitment and corporate training, and did that for a few years. I was very proud of myself because I was able to pay off my student loans and not feel like I didn't know how to be an adult. And then decided to move home. And when I decided to move home as an only child, home is where your parents are. And my parents had relocated to British Columbia, where I had never lived. I'd only traveled, and came here. Attempted my best to establish myself. My mom became ill shortly after I came home and passed away, probably 18 months after I came to BC, maybe closer to 20 months. And ended up going into business with my dad and pursuing my MBA, finding work, building a career. Most recently, got married. Finally, took a little while to get there, and became a mom. I adopted about 3 years ago a beautiful little boy, and he's the high energy purpose of my life these days. So yeah, there you have it.
Oh, what a beautiful journey, Zafira. And so I'm sorry to learn about your mom. Oh, can you tell us a little about BC? What are the things that you like in British Columbia that you would recommend people to come and visit?
Yeah. I mean, British Columbia is one of the single most beautiful places I have lived or traveled to. Uh, I have to say that pretty honestly, if you are looking to experience nature and the expanse of ocean and calm, it's a wonderful place to seek out adventure. There's lots of civilized things to do, like beautiful restaurants and parks and lovely cities, but for me what really resonates with me is the ability to be at peace and one with our surroundings. So where I live now, Port Moody, is not a moody place at all. It's actually quite a lovely place, but it's kind of at the top of the Burrard Inlet, which feeds into the Pacific Ocean. I'm actually looking at it right now, and it is, a great place to sit on a quiet, secluded beach or a crowded beach amidst the forest. There's a lot of deciduous forests near us, and you can sit and really explore that ability to breathe and be peaceful, calm, and at one with nature. And when you're done that, you can go off and find a trail to walk on. You can find an easy walk of, a few hours, or a short walk of 10, 20 minutes, and discover a whole new neighborhood with restaurants and parks and children and all sorts of livelihood. And it's so quick to go from city to country without even realizing it. And you are still, 15, 20 minutes from the largest shopping centers and most famous places that everybody knows about.
Thank you. I still remember the barbecue that you organized on the beach of the Barnet Beach in Port Moody when we were, as you said, working towards our certification in human resources management. It was such a wonderful day.
Yeah, no, and I that park is maybe 10 minutes from my home now. And interestingly, we just did our wedding and engagement photos there a few weeks ago before I got married. So hearing you introduce me as Zafira Scott is a little different because I'm not used to it yet.
Yes, most of your friends know you as Zafira Nanji.
Yes, this is very new. 2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Zafira, you have already started talking about that. Perhaps you could expand a little more about the things that make you happy. What brings joy to your life?
Oh, that's I've been thinking about this a lot lately. So I adore spending time with my father. I always loved spending time with my mother, but that hasn't been an opportunity for a long time. But I really enjoy spending time with my father and hearing his stories and the challenges and opportunities that he had faced in his life. Um, I love my child. I didn't know that being a parent could be nearly as rewarding as it is. I've been, in relationships with people with children and co-parented and been auntie to many, many children, but having a little person solely dependent on you is very rewarding. Um, Beyond that, it's I think what fuels me is my desire to give back. I spend a lot of time volunteering, whether that's in a formal capacity with with an organization or whether that is on a more casual basis. And my son will also tell you, he can tell you where the food bank is and he can show you what kind of food to buy at the grocery store to give to families that need. And he likes to go through his toys and his clothes to take things out to give them to people who don't have. And I think that for me is so important. Kind of passing on those values of giving back and building a better world and contributing to civil society. I think that really makes me happy. Other than that, I mean, like many people, I love to travel. I love to go back and experience old civilizations and travel through places that are a little bit off the beaten path, the back towns of Morocco or the hidden areas where Helen of Troy, was conquering different civilizations in Turkey. So some of my favorite places are places many people never think to go. Um, but I think at the core of it is that ability to spend time with friends, with family, and to give back to build a better world.
Talking about travel, can you tell us about the particular place that you like and also about people, any particular person who has had an impact on you?
Yeah. So locally, I think one of my favorite hidden gems is the Trans Canada Trail or the Great Canadian Trail. So many people in Canada will speak about the Trans Canada Highway, which is a roadway for people to drive from one end of the country to another. There's also a footpath that you could take, and one of the one of the access points to the footpath is about a kilometer from my house. And so I love to. I haven't been very far. I think we've only been maybe 15 kilometers in either direction, but it's quite exhausting because it's a lot of hills. Um, but it's a very unique place to kind of go and experience nature and see various little elements that are part of the local scenery. Um, in the world, I think my absolute favorite place is Zanzibar. I had the chance to go with my dad in 2008 and we spent a few weeks there, and I loved being able to wake up and walk to the markets for fresh local produce and breakfast and being treated like a local. He was very strict. He said to me, don't talk, everybody will know you're a foreigner, even though he speaks the language and I understand enough Swahili to get by, I think, perhaps not. But my accent and my way of walking and my way of talking was so clearly foreign. He and his sister, who lives in Mombasa, were like, no, just don't talk, don't make eye contact. So it was a very humbling experience to be somewhere where my family had lived and grown up, um, and to experience culture in a way that's almost untouched. The island town, the way that people cook on the beach and they walk to the market, and even if they have jobs in offices, they're still very connected to the old ways of doing things. And I really appreciated my time there. And I really appreciated my time in Marrakesh when I was in Morocco. I met a lovely shop owner who embraced me as his sister and invited me over for tea every day for 4 or 5 days that I was there. And another shopkeeper that told everybody I was his daughter, and would just sit me down with again tea, a lot of tea everywhere we go, and would shout across the market, "Oh, there's my daughter!" And I would look around thinking his real daughter was somewhere, but he was speaking of me. And it was just, I think people that are heartwarming and open their arms to you really, really build your experience. And perhaps, you asked me about somebody who influenced me. I think the person that probably influenced me the most was my maternal grandfather. And he had a bit of an interesting story. He was put on a boat from India to Africa when he was 8 years old. And he was the eldest son, so his father wanted to send him off for a better opportunity. And there were a fair number of South Asians living in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda at the time. But he was a little 8-year-old boy and he didn't have family there. And they just put him on a boat off to go
Oh, wow.
make money, send it home, and build a better life for himself. And he met my grandmother, and they got married when I want to say she was young. She was maybe 14 or 16 in the early 20s, maybe mid 20s. And they ended up having a bunch of children, immigrating to Canada. And he passed away when I was 8. And he used to tell me the most important stories about not wondering you are um, why things are happening to you, but accepting them as they are and spinning to take an opportunity to improve things for yourself and to never stop learning. So I think those pieces of not asking why me, saying like why not me, why am I so special that this won't happen to me, and and that was something my mother also spoke of all the time when somebody would say to her, "Oh, you've had a tough situation," and she'd say, "Well, why not me? If not me, somebody else, right? Everybody has to
Yes,
have a
yes.
something tough happen." So that resilience, and then the piece around, there's always something you can learn from every person you meet, every experience you have. There's always that chance to make things better and do better for yourself or for others. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my grandma.
A positive attitude to life.
Mhm.
Yes. Can you
Very
tell
much.
us a little about the place of religion, spirituality in your life? Are they important or not important?
They are. They are. So I'm a smiley Muslim. Many people think of Muslims as just kind of all the same, but much like in Christianity and Judaism, there are many different types of Muslims. And
Yeah.
so the Ismailis are one of the groups under the Shia community, which is the community that believes that when the Prophet Muhammad passed away, peace be upon him, that he left in his stead the Quran as well as a living interpretation, a living guide for the book. And so we have a living guide in the Aga Khan, who is our spiritual leader. He's our 49th hereditary spiritual leader. And the community is very much based on the principles of, as I spoke of, civil society, volunteerism, giving back. We have, children get very involved with the formal volunteering program. I think these days it's as young as 6 or 7 years old when it's not COVID times. But they have uniforms and they serve the seniors and they bring them water and they help out with various tasks. And all the way through until the very elderly, or they continue to give and volunteer. So that's one big component of it. Ismailism is also a very esoteric faith, and you and I have talked about this a little bit. I did my bachelor's degree in religious studies in addition to sociology, thinking that it would help me understand the world a little better and understand my belief system, and took all sorts of classes from witchcraft to indigenous religions to Judaism and Christianity, and really found that my belief system that I was raised with actually did match what I believed. But from within that, learned that the esoteric part of the faith was what really spoke to me, and the opportunity to meditate and commune with or attempt to commune with God, attempt to find, that divine spark or light, really has been a big part of what I am. And I find even now when I'm having those either very happy days or very tough days, that I draw back to those moments of meditation and peace. And perhaps why I really appreciate living in BC and the nature part of it, because I can spend that time and find the opportunities to connect with divine, however we all manifest it. So it's definitely a big part of who I am.
Zafira, it's the time the Muslims all over the world are fasting for the Ramadan. Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little what is the Ramadan and what is Ramadan for you?
So Ramadan is the Muslim holy month. I guess it's a little bit similar to the Christian month of Lent. So it's a time when we sacrifice, we fast from food, we abstain from facile habits. So whether smoking or drinking, or some people will do something like give up chocolate, right? Typically, people fast during the daylight hours. So you wake up, you have breakfast when it's very dark. You might eat a little bit extra to give yourself energy through the day. And then you fast from both food and water until sunset. And the fast is broken with something sweet like a date, typically. Um, it's not to be held if you are, ill, or you're pregnant, you're not able to medically manage that. It's, for the children don't fast. I think I started when I was, I want to say middle school, high school, and I would start with half a day. Um, but it's a time to really purify your intentions and find that spiritual connection with the divine. It's not just about the eating less and hopefully the positive weight loss benefits that some people find, but it's really to show that you can give to gain oneness and to gain that purity. Um, During the month of Ramadan, the 29th, the 23rd day, sorry, the 23rd night of Ramadan is when the holy angel Gabriel gave his first revelation to the prophet. And that was the beginning of the religion of Islam as we know it today. It was the very first moment where it was experienced. And there is a huge festival at the end of the month to celebrate the ability to give back to the community, to sacrifice however you've chosen to sacrifice, and celebrate your oneness with God, however that's come up. So yeah, so for me it's all more and more difficult as we get older. When I was young, it was kind of the sexy thing to fast, and now you want to go hiking and you get hungry in the middle of the day. So yeah, it's definitely a dedication. You've got to be mindful about it. You can't take on a big physical activity necessarily. You have to make sure you're able to medically and emotionally manage it. It can be quite emotional to not be eating throughout the day and to be kind of in that constant contemplation of how to do better and what your purpose is in life. Um, my son thinks it's quite fun because he doesn't get to eat chocolate for the month. He's 4. So I teach him about sacrifice in micro moments. So during the day he can't eat chocolate, but he can eat as much chocolate at night if he's not sleeping. He hasn't figured out that if he stays awake, he can have more. But certainly when he's, he. I think with COVID, it's been quite difficult for most families to transmit that spirituality and communion down to children. And so we've been looking for those small opportunities of volunteering and cleaning up the park, or as I said, we're maybe not doing communal food bank drives, but maybe we're going into the grocery store and loading up the food bank bin, um, and finding ways that we can share what is abundant for us with those who don't have, because it's really important, again, to be mindful and to be respectful of everyone around us, everyone we're sharing our space with, and helping them connect with life in a meaningful way.
Zafira, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation we have had.
My
As I mentioned
pleasure.
at the beginning, I have written a book about my story, all the details of what has happened to me, places I have been, people I have met, different events in my life, both pleasant and unpleasant. You can follow along by going to my Facebook page, George's forthcoming book, where you will get all the updates of what is happening and what will be happening in the future. On this, thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best in your career,
Thank
in
you.
your new status, your new life, and have a blessed Ramadan.
Thank you, George. My pleasure.
Thank you.